Alright, so let's go over some homework. So, I'm going to start with day 1 and number 1. And they're pretty easy. It's just place value. Making sure that you understand those places that things have to be set up in. So day 1 and number 1 is 25.987, and the 9 is what's highlighted. That is the tens place. Alright, so remember that this is the 1, and then we go into fractional parts. If I were to make that a fraction, it'd be 9 over 10, and if I called that 1, that would be a whole number. Okay, so that's why we have to start with 10 after the decimal place, not 1, because it would make my fraction a whole number if I looked at it as a fractional value. So let's look at number 2 now. Number 2 is highlighted on the 6, so 10, hundredths, thousandths. So this is the thousandths place, okay? Number 3, 0.127, and it's the 2, and that is tens, hundredths. So it's in the hundredths place. Number 4, we have it in the whole value. All right, so this is the ones place. All right, let's go on to number 5. So when I add decimals, I have to line up their place value. Okay, it's what's common is their place value. So I fill in zeros wherever there isn't. That way I have equal place values. This is the same thing with fractions. You have to have equal place values, which we'll talk about when we do common denominators. All right, same thing with decimals. Got to have equal place values. So I fill in zeros where I don't have place values. Now on this one, it's telling me to add. So let's add the columns. So that's going to be 3, add this column 8, bring down your decimal point, add this column 2. So for number 5, the answer is 2.83. All right, and number 6, I have 17.002 subtract 1.56. So I got to fill in my zeros. Subtracting each line this time. So 0 take away from 2 is 2. I'm going to have to borrow. So I'm going to borrow 6 from here, which is going to make this a 9. Well, it was a 10, but I'm going to have to borrow again to put a 10 here. All right, so I'll go like that. All right, so 6 take away from 10 is 4. 5 take away from 9 is 4. 1 take away from 6 is 5. And got to fill in a 0 there. So my answer is going to be 15.442. Number 7. So in this one, I suggest you do the first 2, and then you do the third one. So these are added, right? So let's just work left to right, like our order of operations. All right, so that's when I add the first 2. Now I got to subtract, and I threw in one that's going to be negative. So this is my problem now. All right, so I got to tell myself the bigger absolute value number is the 25.01. So I know my answer is going to be negative. Signs are different, so I subtract. So I'm actually going to flip my numbers to subtract. Fill in the place values. And I'm going to have to borrow 1 from here. It's going to give me 6, 0. I'm going to have to borrow from here. It's going to give me 6. Drop down my decimal point. Borrow from here. It's going to give me 7, 1. And I know it's negative. It's going to have to be a negative answer because the 25.01, the absolute value of that would be the highest number. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Number 8. All right, so now I'm multiplying. So 2.1 times 2.3, all right? So these are the two that I'm multiplying. All right, when I multiply, what I do is I take out my decimal places. Okay, I don't need them, but I do know that I have a decimal place in each number, one decimal place, so my answer is going to have 2. I just add up the decimal places. And now I just multiply without the decimal. Because remember that multiplication and division does not care if things are like, okay? So I don't need to line up my place values. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. Go over so that I'm right directly below the 2, okay, when I start this math. Okay, so 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 3, then I just add down. I have 2 place values. The answer is going to be 4.83. All right, so the first thing I do is I make these have this both whole numbers. So I take the one with the most decimals and I move the decimal to make it a whole number, and I have to move it one place. If I move this one place, I've got to move this one place. So the decimal point would have to be after the 10, so now it's 100. Okay, the first number always goes inside the hat, 100 on the outside. 100 can't go into 51, so that's 0. Okay, I'm going to put a decimal point here because I'm out of digits. Once I put a decimal point in a division problem, I can add as many zeros as I want. Now 100 does go into 510 5 times. Subtract them. I added here, so I have to subtract here because they're opposites of each other. All right, because I have a decimal point in my answer, I can add as many zeros to this problem as I want. 100 can go into 101 time. So the answer is 0.51. You can also use dividing by 100 to tell you to move that decimal place 2 places to the left. When you're multiplying by hundreds, you move it 2 places to the right. Either way will work. So multiplication and division is done at the same time. So we're just going to work left to right with this problem. So the first thing I do is multiply. I have 2 place values in my 2 numbers, so I'm just going to put a 2 up here. I'm just going to multiply them without their decimals, so it's less confusing. Move over a space so I'm directly behind underneath the 5 when I do the math. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Now I add my numbers, put my 2 decimal places back in. All right. Next thing I need to do is this division. Don't do the multiplication first. I'm working left to right because it's all multiplication and division left. So this number goes inside, but first I got to make them whole numbers. So this one had the most decimal places. I just moved it 2, which means I have to move the other one 2 places. So now it's 10. Because I'm running out of room, I'm going to use the multiplication and division of 10. Okay? So that means I'm going to move my decimal place 1 place because it's 10. You move the number of zeros in the number, so when it was 100, we move 2. When it's 10, I move 1. Because I'm dividing, I go left. So 117.6 would be my answer. All right, I have 2 decimal places in these 2 numbers. So when I multiply, I just make them whole numbers, and I put my 2 up there. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 7 is 21, 22. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 more is 5. And 3 times 1 is 3. Put a 0 in so I'm directly under the 2 whenever I start doing the multiplication. That's going to be 12. That's going to be 14, 15. That's going to be 2, 3, and that's going to be 2. All right, I'm going to do my addition to this answer over here. So I'm just going to rewrite my numbers. I'm going to do my addition. So that's 8, 4, 10, carry a 1, 6, 7, and 2. Got to put my 2 decimal places back in, so the answer to this problem is 270.48. All right, that was it. Okay, so keep practicing till you get it. If you have any questions, further questions, I didn't quite answer the problem you're having, just contact me. It always helps if you snap a picture of your work when you contact me so I can see what you're doing, and I will help line you out. So then go on to number 2, and I'll see you in class.